This is the Illimitable Experience Podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Illimitable Experience Podcast. If you're watching this video, like this video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. We are posting great content regularly. With that, today we have as our guest Karan Chauhan. Hi Karan, how are you?
Hi guys, how are you guys doing, man? Thank you so much for having me on.
It's a pleasure to have you today, Karan. Karan, I found your profile really interesting because if I'm not wrong, you're a professional MMA fighter,
Yes.
and the journey that you have experienced so far is something that we wish to really want to know. So, Karan, tell me, how did you get involved in practicing MMA? Like people obviously
So
come
that's
for
a
different results, but what was your
yeah.
story?
So I initially started boxing in school when I was about 10 years old. I started boxing because I used to get bullied, and one thing led to another, and I ended up going for my boxing. I ended up going for my boxing nationals, and then I realized that I won the nationals, but I realized there's a lot of politics in the sport, so I wanted to try out a different sport, but I definitely wanted to be involved in combat sports. Push came to shove, and by the time I was in my 11th grade, my 11th standard, I got into a sort of scruffle again. Got bullied by a bigger kid, got bullied by an older kid. This time, this kid had some had political connections, right? So you're fucking around with a totally different kind of animal when you're messing with somebody like that. So I felt very helpless. I felt very powerless. And the very next day, my friend took me to an MMA gym when I was about 15, going on 16. And we haven't looked back ever since. Today, I made my pro debut at 24 years old. And I'm very, very happy. And that's after a very, very long and very satisfying amateur career, winning one national title, winning one bronze medal as a national level fighter as well. So it's been a very up and down road over the last couple of years, but onwards and upwards from here, man.
Fantastic. Now,
Straight to the
Karan,
top of the road.
I really want to dig deep into this topic. These kind of stories where people get, particularly boys, right? Because the way
Yep.
boys bully each other is by physical strength. So is MMA or learning a combat sport in that case the only solution to bullying, or is there any verbal form of dealing with it as well? Because these are the
So,
stories which I've heard
mhm,
consistently on the internet as well, that
mhm,
people got bullied in school and that is why they started in.
yeah. Yeah, see, definitely, there's a lot of things that go into being bullied, first of all, right? Like it's, first of all, being an easy target, not having this air of invincibility about you. But when you train, when you have a discipline, when you are accountable to yourself, you become a very unstoppable kind of person. And when kids are taught combat sports very young, they're taught that responsibility of that power that they gain, right? If you teach a kid an armbar, or you teach a kid how to rear naked choke somebody, how to defend that and get out of it as well. Teach them three, four very simple things about jujitsu, or teach them how to throw a jab, cross, a hook, and an uppercut. Four things in boxing. You can pick out any combat sports and teach it to a kid depending on what kind of body type or style the kid really likes to fight in, but that will give the kid a lot more confidence to walk through life and not be an easy target. That's me attacking the problem, but why the problem exists is because people don't know what it's like to be hit, right? Once those kids get a taste of that, the fight or flight instincts kick in, and you can decide to deal with it, or you can decide to cower, right? I decided to fight back, at least in my case. So what I do suggest to everybody is putting yourself in a discipline, putting yourself in not necessarily combat sports, right? Because combat sports is not for everybody. It's not for the faint-hearted. And if you do have a faint heart, you can try out any other sport too, which will give you that accountability, which will give you that self-respect to be able to not take shit from people. So I say, even if you can't fight back, do a sport so at least you have the guts to say something back. At least you have the do a sport so that you have discipline, so that you have a sort of chip on your shoulder in a very good way, where you know that you separate yourself from the crowd.
Mhm.
But I definitely do suggest that everybody should do MMA at some point in their lives, and not just any combat sports, but MMA in particular, because it teaches you how to not just defend yourself but also attack in many different kinds of ways, right? There's so many aspects in which you can win the fight. Like if you're getting your leg kicked, you can take the person down. If you're getting your face punched in, you can grab the person and not let the person punch your face, right? Things like that. And if the person's grabbing you too much, you can vice versa do the same thing to them. So it just opens up your mind to being able to adapt and overcome in any tough situation. So when you're dealing with a situation in life as well, you don't let life bully you either. You take that on the chin and you move forward.
So, Karan, again, was there uh, anticipation in your mind that if I'm bullied once, I'll be bullied again, and that is why I need to get into combat sports?
Definitely. Because it makes you feel like an easy target, right? So everything around you also feels like a threat anytime somebody raises their voice, anytime somebody tries to step up to you. Things like that kind of do mess with you. So you also don't want to be in that situation where if
Mm,
you look at somebody and you think that they're a threat, you automatically feel scared and you adjust yourself to being like that. That destroys your confidence in the long run. Being able to take and throw punches and kicks and being able to grapple and being able to, deal with a tough situation physically makes you very mentally strong. So I think that yes, definitely, it does make you feel like an easy target when you get bullied once. It does make you feel like you are you're able to get you're able to be scared, and that's not a very good thing for a man to walk around with. I don't know. I'm speaking on behalf of all men because I am a man, and it's made me feel like a very small person, right? At that point in time, and like when you're a kid, your as it is questioning so many things. Your as it is like you as it is have this curiosity about the world. So if that happens to you as you're developing, you can choose to fight or you can choose to run away.
That
So
is true.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know if you know this, but we have had Balakrishna Patange as well on the
yeah.
podcast,
I know.
and
You said
we
so.
were
Yeah.
talking on the same thing and I think I said it on that episode that see, I'm 5 foot 5 inches, right, like an average Indian
Right.
height,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not that huge or bulky to be able to be give a message that you cannot mess around with me. I'm kind of tiny, so that fear
Mm-hmm.
sometimes does play in my mind when. I'm walking down a very lonely road, or it's a late night. So that is why I have also decided that I'll be joining MMA soon. But right now,
Yeah, that's
my
awesome, man.
priorities are different. So, but I'll certainly be joining it. So,
Mm-hmm.
Karan, this was the reason that you started with your MMA journey. But what was
Mm-hmm.
it that made you think that, okay, church start to kar liya, but why should you go an amateur fighter, or why should you go to the professional level? Wasn't that enough that you learned how to tackle your bullies?
भाई पढ़ाई नहीं करनी थी मुझे बिल्कुल पढ़ाई नहीं करनी थी ज्यादा. I'm joking, but no, I went to college. I finished college. I did a 3-year BBA in logistics and supply chain management. That was my
Mm,
specialization. And I also worked for 2 years, while I was in college. I worked in the real estate market. I interned in various companies, and also one being Thermax Limited, which is India's largest boiler company in the logistics sector. And to me, that made me want to not wake up and go to work in the morning every day. Like it didn't feel very fulfilling, although I was getting paid, although I had this very standard set life. Like, I mean, no disrespect to anybody when I say this, but to me, that was never something that made me feel fulfilled or made me feel like I could grow mentally, physically. Bank account wise, yes, it was very nice, but
mm,
also you need to try to be true to yourself, right? So I didn't
mm,
want to be sitting 20 years down the line from now and thinking, what if? And I decided, I was just like, okay, chalo, I'm going to compete. If I think my skills are that good, I was just like this simple middle class person that lived this very typical went from first to tenth to 12th finished college. Now I have to look for my MBA. I had to walk through all those things, but I had this key of competing when I was in school because I was a sub junior national champion in boxing when I was in school, and I thought, okay, chalo, I do have this competitive instinct. I do have
mm,
this drive to do something, and I can't give that sort of drive in a corporate sector. Sorry, in a corporate setting. I can't. Hota nahi hai mere se. I tried it for 2 years. I was just like, okay, it's time to face reality and turn my dreams into a reality. Because I always watched the UFC as a fan. So when I turned 17, sorry, 16 going on 17, I fought my first MMA fight, my first full contact MMA fight, and that was under some very weird rules, some sport MMA rules. So I wasn't very satisfied with that. I wanted a full contact amateur MMA fight. So I had to wait till I was 18 years old. I joined college at 18, and all these things happened more or less at the same time. So um, I had to live my entire college life like an athlete as well. I didn't party, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't do any of that. I focused on competing, and that was that was my focus for all 3 years of college, right? So I kind of threw myself into it. I gave myself no option. I did this because I loved it. Like I did it because I didn't do it because I had to. I did it because I loved every second of doing it. And knowing that I was standing out in a certain way from everybody gave me a lot of confidence. Knowing that I was in my own bubble, knowing that I was okay being alone. I've never been the type to hang around a lot of people, but now I actually had a reason to not hang around people and to only hang around people that were going to help me get to where I wanted to in my life, and not just matlab wise, but also in terms of just keeping your mental sanity. So I meet maybe 3 people in my week, but those 3 people are solid. Like those 3 people are a very solid set of people that I can rely on, and I know that they'll have my back no matter what. So knowing that and being very real with yourself, even socially, even social media wise, right? Like everybody that's seen me sees my brand as a brand of authenticity. Like I don't lie on social media, I don't make false claims, I don't do any of those things. i
Mm,
don't uh, I don't hype myself up to larger than what I think I am, because I know that I know that there's an idiot every day that makes his pro debut and talks about it. But I'm not
mm,
talking about it in the same sense. I'm talking about it from the sense of conquering the world one day. And I mean it when I say that I want to go to the UFC and be the first Indian UFC bantamweight champion of the world.
mm.
So
I
yeah.
I have a few questions. What do you mean by full contact fight?
So when you're fighting in the format of sport MMA, you have to. Again, I'm not very clear on what the rules of that were. That's why I lost the match as well. But basically, if you connect 3 successful punches, you get 1 point, and
Okay.
you're not allowed to knock your opponent out. So if your opponent gets knocked out, I think you get disqualified. I see. I'm not sure on how it works. But again,
Mm,
when you grapple as well, you can't throw ground and pound. And this is for people that are below 18 years of age, so that they can keep
okay.
the sport safe. So it's
Mm,
more focused on submission grappling. It's more focused on gaining points and learning how to gain points while being in a fight and while being in that chaotic situation. So it's building a very strong foundation for juniors to fight and then come up and take punches in the head when they turn 18. When
okay.
their bodies and their physicality is mature enough.
And second question, you said that you were very much disciplined when you were studying. No drinking, no smoking, no kind of
Yeah,
addictions or some sort of thing. Now,
yeah,
this is a philosophical question that I want to ask. That,
shoot.
and you too might have seen that people who are religious tend to be
Hmm.
highly disciplined and away from these kind of what should addictions like drinking and smoking on a regular basis.
Hmm.
Does that mean in your case as well that it is because you are religious you are highly disciplined, or it's the other way around? How much, like, in a way, religion plays a part in this
It's
philosophically?
a
I'm not
very,
asking
I
what your
think,
yeah, religious
hmm,
beliefs, but in any religion in that case. Even you look at Khabib, right? He's highly
yeah.
religious, disciplined.
Hmm.
So in those lines.
Yeah. So I do think that religion does have a strong role to play, but again, it depends on individual to individual. Because I'll tell you, in my case, I grew up in a house with 2 mixed religions. My father's a Jain Marwadi, and my mother's a Parsi.
Okay.
And my sister and I, when I was 11 and my sister was about 7 years old, we had our navjots done to convert to Zoroastrianism. I'm not too clear on why we did that when we were children, but I'm glad we did that, because for so long we saw my father's religion, which was Hinduism and Jainism. Uh, we saw one aspect of the world. Then my mother showed us a completely different aspect of the world, and that helped them, and that helped us because they had this love marriage, right? It helped us gain a very wide perspective on religion and also learn to respect every religion out there. Well, in the case of Habib, now you speak about Habib, I do find that Islam is one of the best religions in the world, not just because of its discipline and its manners, but also because of the kind of person it makes you. I've had the good fortune of having a lot of Muslim friends, and I've seen that uh, more often than not, like those guys are far more disciplined with not doing bad things in their lives. Right? I'm not saying drinking and smoking is wrong. You do it. You can do it if you want to. It's not a bad thing to drink and smoke, but it's always better if you don't. It's always better for your body. It's always better for your mind, because alcohol does it does imbalance the chemical balance in your brain, right? It makes you a more unhinged person, and it can turn into an addiction, and addictions are very, very bad things. And around me, I've seen the kind of people that are very okay giving into those vibes, those vices. And that's always scared me to be my own person. It's always scared me into being a better, like the best version of myself, whether it's mentally, whether it's physically. So even if I go through something bad, I don't drown my sorrows in alcohol or drugs or anything like that. I deal with it very sober. I deal with it like I don't do anything. I don't like to drink. I drink once in a while. I don't do drugs. I don't smoke cigarettes. I never touched a cigarette in my life. But I don't entirely believe that everybody should be 100% disciplined, because if you stay too tuned in, it can very badly, like it can very adversely affect your brain. It makes you burn out like crazy. Can't be
Mhm.
disciplined all the time. So it is important for you to let loose, but depends on how you let loose, right? Like for me, letting loose is ordering McDonald's, bro, because I can't eat that shit every day. I love it. I fucking love food. I love food so much that I want to do a travel blog one day with food. Like it's one pet project of mine. But um I know that I can't eat those things. So giving up on those things that make me happy, uh, and staying disciplined and knowing that you have this one goal in mind, like it definitely, religion does have a lot to do with it, but depends on how you perceive that religion, right? You can't just be religious, go to the mandir or go to the masjid 10 times a day, go to your gyari 10 times a day and expect great results from your life, right? You have to be doing the work. God is there to kind of like, you have a spotter in the gym. Like if you can't finish your last rep, it's just giving you that last little push. That's what God is to me. It's not God is not an entity that I depend on. It's somebody that helps me get through it. So I do pray, but I don't depend on religion.
This is so beautifully answered. Uh,
Yes, thank you.
uh, Beautiful. So yeah. So now, Karan, even when this is an extension of what you just said, that when people have their purpose in life, aligned with themselves, I think it
Right.
automatically falls out that the people who don't support, or who don't align in that dream, even those people just move away from, like in your cases where you said that you meet only three people in a week. Even so, there
Yeah.
is always that no desperation from a person to fit in somewhere. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Yeah.
I think that is really helpful. And I think people who have their goals in mind and quite disciplined are aware that who to get involved with in life and who to not get involved with.
Yeah.
Now,
It helps you filter out the good from the bad. Definitely.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, Karan, what was your competitive journey like? At what age did you start? Like in your first competition, and okay, tell me about that.
So, this sounds like it's straight out of a movie scene, but my first competition was against the guy that used to bully me in boxing. My first
No
ever bout
way,
was against,
seriously.
yeah. I at that point I had thought it was such shitty luck, because this guy beats me up in front of the school every day. He's going to beat me up for real in front of the school. But how I started training in boxing was, I had gone and complained to my mother about this a year prior to that, and she happened to be with her uncle who used to be in the merchant navy, and he used to be a boxer. He was the Western India champion, Western India zonal champion, and he taught me very basic things. He taught me how to maneuver footwork and throw a jab and a cross. So when I went, but that was much later. I started training with him, but that was much later. When I went to my mom to complain, my mom said, "Okay, we're going to go to the principal and lodge this complaint against this boy. He's done this too many times." That would have been the easy way out. My mom's uncle was just like, "Nothing doing. You're coming to me from tomorrow. I have boxing gloves at home, and I'm going to teach you how to fight. I'm going to teach you how to defend yourself." And I think that's the best thing that's ever happened to me, because within a year of training with him, I was already not as scared of this guy. I was still very scared. And competition is something that will make you very nervous no matter what level you're at. So even today, like even before my fight this time, I was sitting in a corner. I was curled up in a ball at 24 years old, had the same feelings a 10-year-old boy did. Same feelings, exact same feelings. But I was set to fight this guy, and this guy was mad dogging me before the fight. And, he was talking a lot of shit to me. But he didn't know that I was training in boxing. We stepped in the ring, and it automatically, like, the whole vibe changed. He automatically, like, was a deer in headlights. And I landed the first jab, and he fell. And the referee gave him an 8 count. And this is 30 seconds, including the 8 counts. Now, I threw a jab and a cross, took that walk forward. I slipped, and I threw a really, really hard cross, and he fell, and then he didn't get back up for like 5 minutes. I knocked him out, and that was all it took. And that was the first time I realized that, okay, chalo, working on something difficult works. And I became a workaholic at 10 years old from that point on. At 14, I had gone for my this thing. At 13, I had gone for my very first nationals. 14, I won my very first nationals in box, sub junior nationals in boxing. Uh, then I realized there's a shit ton of politics in that sport, especially in India, and especially if
Mm.
you're not from up north or anything like that. So I was just like, okay, fine, I'm not going to dwell on this too much, and I'm going to switch sports. So I decided to do something called Muay Thai. So
Mm.
my parents took a lot of trips to Thailand because they used to love going and holidaying there. One time when we were there, my sister and I, we went there for the first time. I decided to try out Muay Thai at maybe 15 years old. Yeah. So I tried out what Muay Thai was at 15. I never got any fights in Muay Thai, but I was just training and I learned new things. I loved the process of growing. I loved the process of training. So I fell in love with that process and I put those skills into practice when I came back to Pune. Uh, this was throughout my 11th and 12th grade. And then what happened in my junior college, and I didn't have the confidence to take that on. So I trained in MMA. My friend took me to the MMA class, and 2 years into me training, I had my very first competition, full contact competition, before the sport MMA competition. After the sport MMA competition that I was talking about. Um, and my full contact MMA fight where I went 0 and 2 in my very first two fights. Like I went no wins and two losses in my first two fights, and I
Mm.
got completely broken from that. I was very upset. So I started speaking to a sports psychologist, and I realized that working on your mental game also does help a lot. Like you need to be very mentally strong. You can do all the preparation. You can do all the rounds in the gym, but if you're not prepared mentally, fight night, you're not going to win that fight. At the end of the day, it's a fight. You need to be mentally strong to win that. So I started working on that. I won my very first fight. And then I
Wow.
lost my next fight right after that because I had no grappling. And then I met somebody who changed my life forever in terms of MMA and the evolution of the sport. I was thinking about quitting MMA in 2018 when like no fights were working out. I kept getting injured, and this was my second year in college. So I was just like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to just live this very average life, and that's what's just going to happen for me because Pune has nothing in terms of jiu-jitsu. At least now it does, but back then it didn't. In 2018, it didn't. Uh, his name was Sean Loyal. So I met Sean, and he went to Symbiosis over here in Viman Nagar, not very far from where I stay.
Mm.
And he had come to my MMA class for one striking class. He had come to my MMA gym in Pune for one striking class, and he said I competed in jiu-jitsu. Now, he told me that he's from this gym called Warriors Cove. Because I had been around the MMA scene for a while, I knew that Warriors Cove is the cream of the crop, the 1% of the 1% of jiu-jitsu fighters in the country, right?
Mm.
And this guy said that, I've competed in one inter-club competition, and I thought, okay, fine, fuck it, dude, whatever. This guy's not going to, he's going to be, he's just another one of those guys that says I've done something and then comes here and then never comes back to the gym before again at
Mm.
all. He took me down and tapped me about 50 times in 5 minutes, and I was just like, oh, okay. And he was a white belt at the time, as was I. So I was like, okay, there's levels to this shit. And then I trained with him relentlessly for a year, and it came to a point where because we had no place to train in Pune, and he was not very keen on coming to the gym that I was training at. Him and I decided to go on Amazon and buy wrestling mats and lay them down in his house where he was living with his roommates. So throughout
Wow.
college, this is how we were living. We'd finish college,
Ah.
we'd go to his house, whether it was 11:30, 12 at night after assignments, after finishing your whole day. We trained from 11 to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes before college, we'll train. So I'll sleep for an hour at his house, wake up, train, go to college from there. And mind you, my college was 41 kilometers from my house. So I had to drive 41 kilometers one way. And in Dubai, that's not a lot. But in Pune,
Mm.
it's like 2.5 hours in traffic one way. Yeah. And this is an office traffic. So it's pretty fuck all. But yeah, so I did that for 3 years, man. I did that for 3 years. And Sean and I, of those 3 years, we trained for 2 years, the last 2 years that he was here before lockdown. And in lockdown, all of that stopped. But by that time, I had gone for the world championships in amateur MMA. I won 11 straight fights after my two losses, won a national championship, then went on from there to win a couple of more fights, lose a couple of more fights. I'm now currently 19-4 as an amateur.
Mm.
After I turned pro, and I'm now 1-0. So there's no going back to amateurs for me. But here we are, man. That's everything
That's,
in as small a nutshell as I can put it.
that's such an amazing journey, man. I mean, the dedication that you would roll on the mats after your assignments, after your university at midnight, that is just worth
Before we go
admiring, man.
further,
Yeah.
I wanted to make one point about this. Like, uh, this is where training and competition are two completely different mindsets. Like for me, I was a very shitty student in school. I would get 43% and I would be happy. If I
Mhm.
passed, I would be happy. By my 10th standard, so I was happy. I got 62% in my boards. I was that shitty a student in school and in my junior college as well. And that, like, it made me have a lot of confidence issues when it came to academics, right? But when it came to applying to a college, I decided to change. I decided to join coaching classes and give the same effort to to college as I was to competing. Because that it woke something up in me, and I was always in the top three in my class in college. So my GPA never fell below an 8.1 out of 10. So which is considered to be good because they never handed out marks in our college. Everybody was either getting 5.5 or below that. The only two people that ever got above me were the two people that got above 9.1, and which I was never like just capable of getting, very honestly.
Mhm.
But again, like I focused on getting a good GPA. I focused on applying to different places, to universities abroad. But again, this kida of competition never left me. This kida of wanting to be somebody that stands out, this kida of wanting to be somebody that just wants to conquer, it came out even in college. So competing helped me in that way. Competing helped me be a good student. It helped me become a better man for sure, because it
Mhm.
helped me grow up really, really quickly. Like I had to give up on a lot of vices and not live that typical college, go party with your friends, go fuck a different girl every night. And
Mhm.
it wasn't that for me. Like I was in a long-term relationship also in college for 3 years of college. Before that, 2 years I was in a long-term relationship for 5 years. So before college, I was in a relationship for 2 years. So, again, like going and meeting the wrong people, not uh taking chances with my life and wasting my time with people, it was never an option for me,
Mhm.
because I never gave
Mhm.
myself any of those options. So that was it, man. Like competition really helped me become a man much quicker.
That is, I mean, I think you will relate to this as well because you must have seen it in your university. Living a hedonistic life has, become very much admirable in these days, and I think people have this unconscious, decision as well for going to the university that okay, I'm going to university. This is my freedom. 3 to 4 years, I'll enjoy. I'll do everything that I want to do, and then I'll catch a job, and then I'll lead a normal life. I'll be like a saintly person after my college. But I think college is not a place to do those hedonistic, acts. I think people should learn and, get inspired from that. You have to lead a very disciplined life, even when you are pursuing your bachelor's or master's or, going to the, university.
Absolutely. I think people go to college for the wrong reasons. Like kids nowadays, like even people my sister's age who have spoken to me about making the right moves in terms of college. Firstly, I tell them, I'm like, bhai, I'm the wrong person to ask about college. I was not a good student. Only
Mm.
in college I became different. But given that I went to a good college and everything over here, like it was not easy for me to deal with that, because it helped, but it also helped me realize that you do everything in your life with a purpose. Like don't be in college just to fuck around. You're never going to do well in college then. You're never going to
Mm.
get the marks you want. You're never going to get the job you want to. And if you're partying for 3 years, incessantly drinking, incessantly smoking weed, incessantly doing all these things when your brain hasn't fully developed yet, you're not going to grow at the pace you think you're going to grow just by going to symbiosis or just by going to NMIMS or going to any of these big colleges that
True.
offer business or science or anything like that. Like you can't depend on the college ka name for your future.
Mm.
Oftentimes that does work out if you can manage partying and studying at the same time, but oftentimes your mentality and how you conduct yourself outside that setting also matters, right?
Correct.
Your exam results are not the only thing that are going to help you get into a better place for your masters or anything like that, right?
Mm.
Now I'm talking about it in terms of people that want to do this, like
Do
want to
this
do it
stuff.
the typical way.
Mm.
But my girl also, she's a lawyer now. She lives a very different life that than I live. She wants to do corporate law. So yeah, exactly. And I
I
have
am a
learned to
lawyer too, so
respect.
I understand.
I know exactly, which is why I said so. And it's made me have so much respect for things like these things that you guys do, because when we were living together in Bombay last year in March, when she was doing her internship and I was doing my training over there, we got a place together and we were living with a roommate. So I saw this drive, this same drive in this person, and then I went down to Kulaba, I went down to Nariman Point, and I saw all these lawyers standing there. Everybody from different parts of India has collected in this one place just to be great, just to just because they've studied so hard, they've given all these exams, they've given all these entrance tests, and now it's just the cream of the crop that's standing outside the Bombay High Court, you know?
True.
And then there's even more vicious killers that are sitting in their offices and earning more money than all of them in the corporate sector. So I'm like, shit, it's a very serious profession to be in. So I've
Mm.
seen my profession like that as well, just in a completely different realm. So both of us were living these two parallels just on our different on our different paths. So when I see these things around me, when I see people that are looking to make good college decisions who also want to be athletes, I tell them one thing. I tell them, don't go to a college based on where the best training will be. Go to select your college. If your life says that you need to be in college right now, and your circumstances dictate that you have to get an education, choose that place of education for what it's going to give you intellectually, not because the best gym is in Delhi, go to Delhi and go to Delhi University. Not because the best gym is in Bombay, and you've gotten into an MIMS and you think you're going to manage this fucking 18-hour day. You're not. If you want to be an MMA athlete, you need to learn to prioritize.
Mm.
You need to learn to save your body and save your brain cells. Because studying too much and working too hard like that, traveling up and down on the local every day, like that will
That
physically take away from you as well, right?
correct.
So yeah, so you have to learn to prioritize and time manage. That's all I tell
Mm.
anybody.
Right. Now, Karan, you have won the nationals as well, you said. And
Yeah.
where was this national, and how much of preparation did you do before the competition?
So
And how many matches did you play and everything? What does the competition play out like?
yeah. So when you go for a tournament, you're usually in a knockout format, right? Like where it's like the round of 32 in the FIFA in the
Mm.
FIFA World Cup, round of 16, round of 8, depending on how many fighters are in each category. Now, in this particular competition, what they had done, they had split my weight category because there was so many people that had applied in that same weight category. It was the most stacked. They had split the weight category into featherweight A and featherweight B. So I fought in featherweight A. I had to fight three. I had to fight three of like a total of three fights to make it to the like to win the nationals. So I had to fight my quarterfinal, my semifinal, and my final within 2 days. So on the first day, I fought my quarterfinal. I won that via armbar. I won all three fights via the same submission, just different variations of the same submission. So I'll give you a very interesting backstory to that as well. Like I did that same submission to prove a point. Um, I caught the second guy in the semifinals. I finished that fight with the submission in 30 seconds. Like he thought he took me down and he was going to do well, but I caught him in a submission. I baited him down to the floor with me. In the finals, it was a very hard road because I blew my left quad out within the first 10 seconds of the fight. I tried to throw a knee to his body, and his elbow went straight into the
Straight.
fleshy part of my thigh. So my leg went completely dead in that fight. But I was like, you know what, I've come too far, and I'm in the finals finally, and that gold medal is going to look a lot better than the silver medal will. So I was like, you know what, okay, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna be patient for my opportunity. And this guy was ground and pounding me. He was first of all way more physically strong than me. I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but I'm extremely skinny. I'm a very
Mm.
skinny person, and this guy was about 3 feet wider than me. But somehow he was in the same weight class, and he was a professional bodybuilder. So he had this like very vicious strength about him and explosiveness. So he was beating the crap out of me for the first round on the ground because I couldn't do much. I was trying to slap on a submission, but I couldn't find it because his leg just wouldn't move. In the second round, I saw him kind of fade. I saw him kind of get tired. I threw a couple of knees to the body on the feet with the leg that was working, and those landed, so it sucked the air out of him a little bit. Then when he took me down again, more of the same in the second round. But in the last 30 seconds of the fight, he got extremely tired and overextended with a punch. And then I slapped on an armbar and I finished him by my third armbar of the competition and won my gold medal. Now, this competition was particularly special to me because 2 months before that, I had fought in the world championships and lost the current world champion, Ahmed Ghazi Magomedov. Like he is, uh, he won the gold medal in that competition, and he's been on an absolute tear in Russia. He
Okay,
won the
so
world
this guy was
championships, and
playing in this
in
competition
the
that you
same
were
yeah
playing.
in the same world championships that I was fighting in for Team India, he was fighting for Russia, and I fought him
And
in my first fight.
where
I
does this
lost. I
take
lost.
place?
2019, like
No, where
November 2000 in
where
Bahrain.
does this?
In Bahrain,
Okay, in Bahrain. Okay.
Bahrain. Yeah, in Manama, Bahrain. Yeah. So I went for the world championships. It was everything and more that I wanted because I had at 15 years old when I started MMA, I promised myself that I would make it to an Olympic level sport. Right. by the time I was 21 or by the time I was 22, I wanted to be a higher level athlete. And on my, like, the day after my 21st birthday, I walked out to fight the world championship fight, my first world championship fight. Like, it was crazy because my first finals that I fought in boxing when I was 10 years old that I lost was, I walked out with the same mentality. Like, the lights hit me. I was wearing the red corner uniform. I walked out. People were cheering for me because I was from India. A lot of people were cheering for him. A lot more people were cheering for him because he was from Russia. And it was nice. I walked out with that same mentality, but he also made me look like I was like he was fighting a 10-year-old. Like, he beat me up pretty badly. And I learned a lot from that because he submitted me in the second round, So I swore to myself when I came back that I would improve my jiu-jitsu, just improve my jiu-jitsu. And I worked so relentlessly on it that I finished every subsequent fight after that in my nationals via the same submission just to prove a point. And I got the best submission artist award for that. And it was a huge point of growth for me. And then that year in 2020, fucking lockdown hit, man. That ruined the pace of everything I was set to do. Everything. But it also helped me grow. Like, during lockdown, I set up, I don't know if you can see this in my room, but there's a little space between me and my bed. I in this space I had set up about 24 wrestling mats, small wrestling mats, and I was training in my room because all the gyms and everything were closed.
So,
I
so
have
how,
two
how
boxing
how did you
bags.
do this? Like, how did you set up 24 wrestling mats in that such
They're
small
small.
space?
They're, in a small space. I set them up because they're so thin. I had to set them up in layers, right? So I was doing
Okay.
12 mats a layer. So I did two layers
Oh.
of it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then I taped everything down with duct tape so it wouldn't move. But that was my room. My bedroom was my gym for 2 years, and throughout lockdown, right? So in 2021, finally, when everything opened up again, I had been training in my room for about a year and a couple of months. Got back to the gym, and we didn't have a coach after that. Like, my coach Ismail Haji, who was my very first MMA coach, who I won my nationals with, had shut his academy down because of lockdown. And my next four training camps that I did for 2 years, I did between Bombay, Pune, and Delhi, competing as an amateur. And then this year, like, sorry, in 2022, when I decided to make my pro debut, I decided that I would start training in Delhi with everybody, like with with the Warrior Scope people, because
Warriors.
with Warrior Scope, because those guys, like I said, cream of the crop, jiu-jitsu, MMA, whatever, like whatever you call it, and it's a shark tank of the best athletes in the country that go there to learn. Unfortunately, at the time, like, a lot of things were happening personally where I couldn't get out there and stay in Delhi for too long because, first of all, it was again too expensive. Second, a lot of things at home that didn't allow me to go out, right? So for my first pro fight, I realized that I had been doing so many different things. I had tried to go out to Bombay to learn to wrestle. I had that wrestling mentality, and I was fighting like an idiot at that point, right? Not to say that my coaches were teaching me anything wrong. That was they taught me everything to the best of their abilities, and I won thanks to them. Like all the fights that I did win, I won thanks to the things they taught me. But again, it didn't let me be creative or be instinctual. I wasn't relying on my instincts. I was relying on fundamentals solely to win those fights, which sometimes don't work when you're not allowed to be creative. And there's a there's a big benefit to me having moved back to Pune and having been stuck in Pune again for some time, because it helped me be very creative again. Like, it helped me not fight with so much by the book training anymore. It allowed me to be myself and implement those by the book things in my fighting style. So I feel like a lot of athletes that are fighting should also learn who they are. Like, if you're more inclined towards wrestling, find a gym that will teach you how to wrestle better. If you're more inclined towards striking, sharpen up your tools in those gyms, but also learn how to wrestle and learn how to not let people take you down, because your striking is useless from the ground. You're not going to land any strikes from the ground, right? So you have to learn how to maximize your abilities as a fighter. And depending on how hard you work in maximizing your abilities, is how far you're going to get in your career. Not just social media wise. Like, if you're a boring fighter but you're talking a lot of trash on social media, nobody's still going to want to watch you. You have to be an exciting fighter. You can talk all the
Right.
shit you want on social media. You have to knock people out and make them go, what the fuck, right?
Right.
That's
Now,
what sells.
how does one become creative in a fight? Can you, like, is it a
Again, it depends on
learned
your
skill,
instincts,
or
right?
is it like
Yeah,
instincts? How does that work?
it's completely different from fighter to fighter. Now, I can only speak for myself in this sense because For me, I've always had this dog in me to fight. Like I've never shied away from a fight. I had been the kid that was bullied and everything, but that was just because I was a very small kid, right? So I know what it's like to feel small. So I will never stop fighting no matter how big my opponent is. Like even my coach that I was training with, he would spar himself with us. This man is 6'4" and weighs about 105 kilos of pure muscle. Like absolute tree trunk legs, big arms, big legs. So I've faced guys like that my entire adolescent MMA career. So
Hmm.
it it helped me again. Like things like that helped me grow up really quickly in terms of not being scared of people, not being scared of fighters. But again, to answer your question in terms of being creative, that does come from inside. Like you have to have a certain level of creativity as a fighter, and your coaches have to, like, coaches can't teach you how to be creative. No matter how badly a coach wants you to be creative and wants you to rely on your own instincts. Instincts are something that are within you. If you have them, it's good. If you don't have them, you have to get better fundamentally. And you see so many fighters like that, right? Like a lot of these guys don't have a lot of very fight winning instincts, but they do know how to win, right? So they
Hmm.
will take you down, they will sit on top of you, they will hit you enough on the ground, they will ground and pound you enough to try to score enough points and not let the referee pull you off of him, right? So uh people that do understand MMA, people that do understand the sport of jiu-jitsu and wrestling and how points are earned, a person like that that doesn't have instincts will be able to win the fight if his fundamentals are strong, his or her fundamentals are strong. But
Hmm.
if a person's instincts and fundamentals start to work in harmony together, that person becomes absolutely unstoppable. I'll give you the example of my last fight, like my first pro fight.
Hmm.
um, so a lot of people thought that my opponent took me down. Again, like I'm not shitting on my opponent, but this is something that I did quite consciously. Now the way he
Hmm.
took me down was with a very basic, not so solid body lock, and I kind of went down with it because I knew that he knew he didn't know what he was doing on the ground
Acha.
much. Because
Hmm.
I trained with a bunch of like great wrestlers, great MMA wrestlers, right? And from that point on, like I was just chilling on my back. I was popping. He was popping me with shots. He was catching me with shots, but nothing that was doing too much damage. And he was a little smaller than I was. Like I got a lot of weight for this fight. I got 13 kilos for this fight, and I was already 12 kilos back up by the time the fight time came around. So I was a lot bigger than him. So when he was punching me, I wanted him to tire himself out because I knew that, I felt him slow down. I felt him slow down every 30 seconds, every 40 seconds. I was counting it. I was letting him gas himself out as much as he possibly could.
Hmm.
And then he did something where I was like, okay, here's my chance. I slapped on another armbar from a very weird position. And then he did something that I did not expect. He lifted me and then flung me out of that. But then before he flung me out of the armbar, I was like, okay, chalo, I'm not going to look like a bitch in front of everybody over here, and my girl is watching. I'm not
Ah.
going to, I'm not going to get flung like some bitch. So I let go, and as he was flinging me, I let go. I put my elbows down. I reset. As he was coming towards me, he kind of had his hands down, and I threw an up kick, and he fell. And with an up kick, it's a very creative move. It's a very like, okay, now or never kind of move. So you have to time
Hmm.
it just right. And it's not like I ever drilled this move, but I would kind of sort of catch people with it in training, and I've had the timing down a little bit. So as he came, I timed it perfectly. He fell down, and I finished him on the ground with two hard punches, and he was out
Wow.
after that. But again, see, that's a mix of creativity, and then those two punches were fundamentals, right? Like because if I left him over there, we'd have probably recovered. And
Hmm.
then it's pouncing on the person, getting the proper hip control, getting the proper shoulder control to land those other two punches. Like those are where your fundamentals kick in. So you have to understand where your instincts kick in and your fundamentals, because you can't rely solely on your instincts, it'll get you killed.
Hmm.
And you can't rely
Correct.
solely on fundamentals, that'll get you killed too. So to stay alive, you have to walk a very fine line, and you have to have a very solid balance of the two things. And
Hmm.
perfecting that balance is just what MMA fighters do from the lowest level to the highest level. But it takes realizing that to get to the highest level.
Right. Now, Karan, when you talk about your pro journey, so is that a competition, or now that I mean to say that you call yourself a
Is
pro
it like a
because you have
tournament? Yeah.
participated in, or is it like a UFC that you fight once a year or twice a year, something like that?
It is
What defines a pro fighter in your case?
it is the latter that you're explaining, but not in the same context. Like I'll explain the difference to you. As an amateur, you have to fight with shin pads on, or
Hmm.
certain shows that don't let you put shin pads on, you have to fight with 7-ounce gloves. Now, 7-ounce gloves are, let me show you. I have them lying right here. So these are the big puffy gloves that you will fight in MMA with, in amateur
Okay.
MMA with, because these do less
Hmm.
damage.
Hmm.
However, these are professional gloves. These are 4 ounce gloves. It
Correct.
looks like there's practically nothing in between them because there practically is nothing between them, right? You fight without shin pads. You can throw elbows. You can throw knees. As a professional fighter, you can throw no knees on the ground under unified rules. But in one championship, you can knee the opponent on the ground. You can go for leg locks as a professional. You cannot go for leg locks. You can't go for knee manipulations or small joint manipulations. So that's like knee, ankle, hip manipulation. You can straight ankle lock somebody, or you can knee bar somebody, because it's not twisting the knee sideways, right? Because this takes
Okay.
very little to break the knee. This will
Hmm.
still take a lot more to break the knee. Um, and in amateur MMA, you have to wear these big gloves. You sometimes have to wear shin pads depending on what kind of competition it is. If it's a tournament, then you definitely have to wear shin pads. And if it's like a fight night, but you're fighting an amateur fight, they will let you wear the big gloves with no shin pads. But again, same rules: no knees to the head of any kind, no elbows of any kind. You can only throw knees to the body, and even when you grapple, you can't pull off heel hooks. You can't pull off twisters. You can't pull off neck cranks. Stuff that manipulates small joints and manipulates your spine. You can't
Okay.
pull those submissions off, right? But no, right now I am fighting as a professional. The difference between those two things I just explained. Now, the contractual difference between the two, like between the two. Uh, as an amateur, you can compete a lot more often because you're not bound by any federations. You're not bound by anybody to
Hmm.
fight in a particular organization. If you sign with an organization in MMA, you can either sign a one fight deal or you can sign a multiple fight deal. If you sign a multiple fight deal, you are bound by that organization to not compete elsewhere. But if you're not and you're a free agent like me, you can apply
Hmm.
to different places and have different promotions. Promotions give you fights against their people in your weight class.
Okay.
In amateur competitions, you don't have to sign any contracts. You only have to sign an NDA saying that if you die over here, it's not our responsibility. But when you go for these competitions again, like, you have to pay a certain amount. You have to pay 2,500 rupees or 1,800 rupees or 1,500 rupees, depending on what the federation is charging you to take part in these amateur competitions.
Hmm.
You fight a series of fights in a tournament where you're fighting anywhere between 5 to 7 fights in a tournament over a couple of days. So again, like, it's a lot more competition. You get a lot more fights as an amateur, but you don't
Hmm.
get paid
Okay.
unless you're fighting on a fight night and the show is giving you a measly amount of money for an amateur fight. Because as an amateur, your focus cannot be money unless you're depending on endorsements, unless you're depending on sponsors, unless you're getting your money from elsewhere to support your MMA. But as a professional, all these things go hand in hand. Your sponsors are for you to eat, sleep, train, shit, you know, do whatever you have to do. They will
Hmm.
sponsor your life. But again, like, everybody doesn't get those sponsors. Like, I don't have those kind of sponsors yet that are financing every aspect of my life. So again, you have to work your way up to those sponsors. But yeah, again, the difference between an amateur and a professional
Hmm.
is, even a professional will have to sign a contract, sign a multiple fight contract with these different types of promotions, and you're fighting for money, right? So you get as much money as your contract says, or depending on what kind of bonuses you're going to be getting from that. So those aspects are also in that contract.
Okay. And I
Yeah,
had one question. Now I don't know how to frame it correctly. But
yeah.
so when you say that you sign up with one club which will take handle your fights and everything, do
Not a
such
club,
kind
a
of
promotion.
a promotion. So do
Yeah.
do those institutions pay you as a fighter?
Okay, no, you're confusing clubs for a promotion. Now, when I say a fight promotion, I mean a promotion like the UFC. I mean a promotion like
Okay.
Bellator. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
But
Hmm.
no, to get you those fights, you have to have a good manager. Now, your manager,
Acha.
oftentimes in MMA in India, is your coach. Usually,
Acha.
your coach is like, okay, there's a fight over here. Do you want to fight? Usually, a
Hmm.
coach is like, okay, chalo, theek hai, they want a fighter on this card. Would you like to fight? So that's usually the case with coaches in India, which is not a bad thing. It's also the case with the coaches everywhere else in the world. The
Hmm.
difference is that the manager of the fighter has a lot more. It, like, having a manager makes you more credible as a professional fighter, right?
Acha.
So when you're approached by a manager, like when you're approached by a fighter's manager, you know that, okay, chalo, this person has the resources and is at that level to be able to afford a manager, right? Because you have to pay a manager through your earnings through fighting. and that's your manager's source of income. So he's working that much harder for you. As an
Mm.
amateur, usually you won't get it. Some people do have managers as amateur athletes, but that's just because they can sell themselves well.
It's true.
But again, like until you turn pro, usually people don't get a lot of managers. So
Mm.
yeah, so
And
the
do you
person
have
that
a
does get you the
manager,
fights is your manager.
or you are
Yes,
a
I do. I do. I do.
okay?
I do have a manager. Yeah. And I
Mm-hmm.
also have a very
And
strong administrative team. I also do have a very strong administrative team that comprises of like so my girl, like I said, she's a lawyer. She vets all my contracts and everything for me.
oh,
I have a team of physiotherapists that I work with, and I have a very strong, tight knit set of coaches that I work with.
mm.
And I
Okay,
also
tight
have a
knit.
lineup of sponsors as well. Like I also do have a, not a
Yeah,
lineup, but I
I
do
was
have
just
a
coming to
family.
that.
Yeah, I do have a
So
family of
before we go to
sponsors.
the
Yeah.
sponsorship, so when you
Yeah.
say that you have a very tight line of coaches as well, so how do these coaches and how does a pro work with these coaches? Like one day you're doing jiu-jitsu, the other day you are doing boxing, the next day you are doing something else. Is that how it
Yeah.
works?
Yes. So you have to see what your goal is for that phase of your training. If you're
Achha.
if you're in your strength if you're in your strength phase, you need to be wrestling and lifting more for sure. Because those
Hmm.
because those things build your muscle, like the base of your skills, the base of your physicality as a fighter, right? I'm not saying don't strike. I'm not saying don't do all those things. But for me personally, when I am looking to gain size, I will wrestle more. I will definitely be lifting a lot more. Now, again, like I don't put on a lot of size. It doesn't look like I put on a lot of size, but I get very, very quickly. The good
Hmm.
thing is that I can lose that weight very quickly. So cutting weight for a fight is usually easier for me than for most people.
Okay.
But yeah, so there are days where you have to segregate your training. So like Monday, Wednesday, Friday for me right now, in the phase that I'm at, because I don't have a fight coming up anytime soon. I will be lifting Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'll train MMA. Like on Mondays, I'll usually work on striking. Wednesdays, I'll usually work on grappling. And
Hmm.
Fridays is sparring. But usually, I'll replace sparring if I'm not fighting for like if I'm not training for a fight. I'll replace sparring with some skill work. You know,
Achha.
and that doesn't include all my bag work and MMA fundamental stuff that I do right here at home. Like I'll do a lot of solo drills at home every single day. So fight training happens every single day. I train 3 times a day every day for 6 days.
Wow.
Yeah,
3 times a day for 6 days.
yeah.
And how does the sponsorship work in a pro as a pro fighter? Like how do these things work as a
So
structure?
it depends on what kind of sponsors. Now, people mistake sponsors for only giving you money, right? Like sponsorship
Hmm.
is not limited to those things. Sponsorship is limited to very different aspects of where a sponsor can help an athlete and how the athlete fits into that sponsor's brand, right?
Hmm.
So my very first sponsor that ever came to me was LEW Boxing. They manufactured Mary Com's gloves for her back in the day, and they do a lot of the raw material and manufacturing work for Everlast and all those big boxing brands in the US, like Everlast, Longsdale, Ringside. They manufacture all the gloves right here in India and Jalandhar. So
Okay.
recently, like in the last 2 years, they've gotten their own brand that they've come out with and selling like hotcakes. And
Hmm.
I'm the only MMA athlete they've ever worked with.
Okay.
So for me, they sponsor my equipment, my MMA equipment, my bags, my gloves, my shin pads, my thigh pads, the boxing pads as well. Like, like a lot of equipment. Just whenever I need it, he just sends me like a box of stuff that I ask for, and it's really cool. So he sends me small stuff like hand wraps, mouth guards. I have an LEW mouth guard as well. So, but I have different mouth guard sponsors now as well. So I'll tell you about those in a second. My other sponsors are don't know if you can see over here, but that's Bola Athletic. Bola
Yeah.
Athletic.
Okay. Baller
Yeah,
athletic, huh?
yeah. They're a Bombay-based brand. They're a Bombay-based
Hmm.
brand that have clothes that have infrared technology infused into their clothing. Into their clothing, so they make their t-shirts and everything out of bioceramic minerals that basically feed infrared energy back into your body. So that's basically supposed to be making your like your 99% to 100%. It's going to add that 1%. It's going to make your 1% better.
Okay.
So if I so let's say I can do something like I can do 3 out of 5 rounds. It's going to make me not do five, but it's going to make me do those three extremely well, right?
Oh,
It's
okay.
gonna give me more energy for those 3 rounds. I'm still gonna be done by the third round because I don't
Hmm.
have to do those 5 rounds, but I will give those 3 rounds more effort. My balance is improved since I started wearing those clothes because my muscles are far less tight all the time. I'm not injured all the time like I used to be. So it's benefited me in many ways, and those guys have taken care of me like family, man. Like when I moved to Bombay to train, it was very scary for me, right? Because I get homesick very quickly. I don't know about people that know this about me, but I don't know if people know this about me, but I get homesick really quickly whenever I go somewhere in the world, right? So, and I had just moved to Bombay to train and to start my fight camp and begin my new life there. And Tanvir, who's the owner, Tanvir Daswani, he called me to his house 2 days after I had come to Bombay. I went on a Monday. I went to his house on a Wednesday. This man took me into his home. This man gave me coffee. He gave me a presentation on how everything about the brand works, and he liked how I presented myself, and he liked what I was doing with the sport. So he was very happy to have me on board, and I was very pleasantly surprised and more than happy to be on board with him. So because he was doing something for the athletes each time he was doing something. He was never doing anything for his own benefit. He was never
Hmm.
benefiting from his athletes. Everybody that I mean, obviously he's benefiting from his athletes, but he was never doing something to earn anything off of them. He's always done everything to help them and reap the rewards and the profits from that. So every
Okay.
bit of work that he does with his athletes, he does keeping everybody in mind, like keeping everybody that is training and going through real problems in training. He's
Hmm.
trying to mitigate those problems as much as he can physically for the athletes. So they manufacture their stuff for the Rajasthan Royals, the Pro Kabaddi League. There's a team in the Pro Kabaddi League that they manufacture clothes for and apparel for as well.
Acha.
Um, and they also make stuff where you can sleep in it as well, right? So you're recovering as you're sleeping through the night. So I only
Hmm.
wear that stuff to sleep at night. I'm still in my those same shorts that I slept in at night because my thighs were really fucked after yesterday. But again, like I wake up with zero soreness in the morning, so it's been working.
Okay, so
And my
so
third
this
sponsor,
and this
yeah,
you're talking about the baller athlete. What do you call
athletic, yeah,
apparels? Ah,
yeah,
okay.
apparel, yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I'll send you their account on Instagram. You can check them out yourself. Sports dentistry in India, Spoden, run by my
Hmm.
friend Arib Deshmukh. Arib contacted me a couple of years ago and told me that he had this concept about why Arib and my friendship started really is because of my obsession with Spider-Man and comic books, right? He's a huge comic nerd himself. He's a huge computer nerd and gaming nerd himself.
Hmm.
So we started bonding over that. And he is a dentist turned sports dentist now that runs his clinic out of Warsaw in Bombay. And he makes customized mouth guards for athletes out of some of the best material in the world. So he imports his material from Germany, from what I remember him telling me.
Hmm.
And for me, he made a customized
A
Spider-Man
Spider-Man.
mouth guard.
Oh wow, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, Spider-Man mouth guard. That's my name on the left side, and that is my girl's name on the right side.
Okay.
And that is the Spoden logo.
Wow.
So, he's doing these amazing things and he's customizing these mouth guards for athletes. And now, why I say customized is when I put this in,
Hmm.
it kind of sort of sounds like I have a mouth guard in, but I'm still speaking very fluently. Right? With
Correct.
other mouth guards, you have to kind of you're gonna bite down on it, and not let it out of your mouth under any circumstances. So, and because this fits so well, it gives you this attachment with it, with which you have to pull it off. Because if you don't pull it off with that, it's gonna rip your gums to shreds because it fits so well. But I have weak gums. That's my reason.
Yeah, but this fits so perfectly. I mean, you were able to speak
Exactly.
clearly, and I was able to understand what you are speaking. Otherwise, in the match, what I've seen that people really need to, just do some hand movements to their coaches, and that is how they communicate because they cannot communicate verbally because of the mouthpiece.
Exactly. So this is where like where the distinction between just having a sponsor and having a sponsor that you fit in with. This is an
Hmm.
example of that. Now, because I have a friendship with everybody that I'm working with,
Hmm.
I'm also like we're also able to separate business from friendship, but also it gives you that much more respect for the person that you're working with, right? So you do your best to do justice to your sponsors because there are people that get sponsors and fucking forget about them. I'm not one of those
Hmm.
people. Like everybody, like these guys have believed in me when nobody believed in me. When I lost my two amateur fights and everybody could have dropped me, nobody dropped me. So I was just always very happy to very happy to do well for them and have them on board with me. Like even when I was walking out for my fight, I had the baller clothes on, and those guys have supported me from day one that they've been working with me. Like even at times where financially they've had to support me, I don't know if I can put this in. I'm going to confirm with him. So when you're editing this, I'll just let you know. But
Hmm.
even financially, like they've supported me like crazy. Like when I had to go for the world championships again after I met them, but that got scrubbed. He just had the money ready like the next day. for me, and nobody's done that for me. Like I've had to. My parents have sponsored most of my training, like 99% of my training throughout my years. For 1.5, 2 years that I was sponsoring my own training, I know exactly what it fucking took. And every penny that I earned, every 1,000 rupees that I used to save meant a lot to me. So when these guys came up with that exorbitant amount of money overnight, I was so grateful to them. And that's the first time like somebody has put me as a priority financially, seen me as an investment, and seen what I do as viable to be able to spend money on. So people need to realize where they stand with sponsors, because having a sponsor is not a birthright of an athlete. You have to earn it.
Mm.
You have to be marketable. You have to be somebody that can sell, and that doesn't happen by talking shit. Like I talk zero shit. I might have to start calling people out online because nobody's accepting fights. That's different. But
Mm.
I'm not somebody that will talk a lot of shit and gain attention that way. Like I'll do it punch by punch. I'll do it the hard way. I'll do it the right way. And
Mm.
that's what Baller sees in me, and they support every bit of that. But they just say, talk a little shit, bro. You need some controversy around you.
Controversy
But yeah,
around,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now,
But again, like
in
अंदर से
that
नहीं आता
case,
है. हाँ.
in that case, I mean, the best example in the recent times has been Andrew Tate, who has generated so many of his views because of deliberate
Yeah,
controversies.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Karan, now in that case, see, you just said that for everything you have a sponsor. But how do you deal with a situation when you have multiple sponsors for the same thing? Like, let's say mouthpiece. Okay, mouthpiece. I mean, it is really important for you. But even if as a viewer, I think that हाँ अगर ये नहीं तो कोई और बना के देगा, वो नहीं तो कोई तीसरा बना के देगा. And let's say this
Mhm.
all two or three brands are interested in you. So how do you deal with that situation कि मेरे पास दो तो तीन brand endorsements आए हैं, so what should I do करके?
If you have the privilege to have more than one sponsor for one thing, you should consider yourself extremely lucky, first of all.
अच्छा.
You need to handle that the right way, right? Like, let's say you have a pre-existing relationship with somebody and they've been working. See, for me, I've not gotten that many sponsorship opportunities, but I have gotten a lot of fight opportunities, and I did get one major sponsor from a very major apparel brand. But I promised Balla Athletics something to them when I first started with them because of the way they helped me. I promised that even if a multi-billion-dollar brand tomorrow came to me for apparel, I would say no to them, and that's
Mhm.
what I did. Like, and this happened a couple of months ago. I didn't want to throw it in people's faces, but like for me, it's about how the brand has worked for me. It's how the brand has supported me. It's how the brand has treated me like family, right? Because in this sport, it's very hard to find people that you trust. In any sports, for that matter, in the world of sports, it's very hard to find people that you trust and people that will be there for you regardless of where you stand.
Hmm.
Because tomorrow, let's say, even a brand like if Reebok approached me one day, or a brand like Under Armour or Nike approached me one day, like for shoes, it's different. Obviously, if Nike was to give me shoes or Under Armour was to give me shoes, I'd be like, bro, you want me to do
Okay.
jhadu katka anywhere? I'll do it. Fine, it's cool. But yeah, no. But for clothing apparel, I know that there's one brand I'm going to wear for the rest of my life, and that's Baller. And I'm not saying this because Ballers asked me to say anything. I'm saying this because my girl also gets angry with me, because even to eat, even to sleep, even to like go out anywhere, if we have a date somewhere, like I'll wear a Baller t-shirt because it just looks good wherever I like wherever I wear it. It's nice. It's something that I can wear proudly. Something I can say is like I'm a part of it. And if I can't
Hmm.
say that about a brand, I will not work with them. But to answer your question, let's say you have 3, 4 people that have come to you. Now, other clothing brands have come to me. I've flat out refused them, but I've refused them. I've refused them in a nice way to let them know that I will not work with them. But thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for considering me. I'll suggest other athletes to them. I'll suggest athletes that didn't fit in with Baller, that might want to work out with like with this particular brand. So that's how I would, and anybody should handle it in a very good, in a very cordial way. But there are
Hmm.
some people that do leave their sponsors for bigger sponsors for more money, and like when you lose those, like when you lose fights, when you lose matches, when you lose who you are as a person, those sponsors lose you just like that, just like that. You have to test your level of loyalty with everybody. Like it's never been tested with Baller, it's never been tested with LEW, it's never been tested with Sport, and I'm very fortunate to be able to say that these people have never tried to cheat me or do anything. So I'll hold these people very close to my heart. I'll call them up. I'll speak to them. They'll call me. They'll speak to me. It is an athlete sponsor relationship. Now, obviously, in sports where sponsors come through federations, you can handle it any which way you like because the federation has to deal with them. Now, let's say tomorrow Nike approaches Bajrang Punya instead of Asics. Nike is a way bigger brand than Asics, but Bajrang Punya has done so well for Asics that Asics will do everything they can to protect him, and Nike will do everything they can to get him. So when two brands are fighting over the same athlete, it's usually a very tough situation for that athlete to handle. But again, like he's decided to stay with Asics. Like I'm not saying Nike approached him. I'm not making a statement. I'm just saying if this is a hypothetical.
Yeah, it's an example. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Got it.
he's done so well for them. He has no reason to move. Now Messi did the same thing when he moved to PSG, right, with Barcelona after he left Barcelona. They were offering him more money, and he had already proved everything he had to prove in Barca. And the guys that he started with, like the guys like Xavi, Iniesta, everybody had gone from there. What was the need for him to stay there, right? So it all depends on where your priorities lie for your life. Ronaldo, fucking mad example of how
Al
he just
Nasr,
moved to Saudi Arabia after playing for the Galacticos, after playing for Juventus, after
all the
playing
big
for United.
clubs.
Like yeah, dude. Like again, those are his priorities. He wants more money at this point. He wants to have his family live a much better life in the
Secure.
future. That's fine. That's yeah, exactly. Nobody can judge him for that, right?
Makes sense. And is there a
Yeah.
way that, because you have mentioned this multiple times, that uh, it all the relationship between a brand and an athlete is that of loyalty. So is there a way that you test the loyalty who you want to associate with, or is it based on the first personal relations that you have formed, and then that transforms into a professional relation?
See, before you get into, again, this is everything that I'm speaking about is through trial and error. Everything that I'm speaking about has happened through my experience. So this is my personal
Mm,
experience that I'm imparting. There's no one way to do it.
mm,
But this is how I did it. With me, I never started to work with a brand unless I got a good feeling from them. If I felt something fishy happening towards me, if I felt like, okay, these people are not being regular about something, or these people were trying to say one thing and do another thing, I would flat out just say, you know what, okay, I'm sorry, thank you. So tomorrow, even if a financial sponsor comes to me, right? Even if a huge financial sponsor comes to me one day and then they have all these terms and conditions, even though that's a lot of money and it's what I need right now, if it does not fit my brand, if it does not give me a good feeling, I will choose to work harder to earn that money for myself on my own until a brand that I can trust and be comfortable with and I know I can move forward with comes along. I will not accept that. Don't put yourself in a bad situation and then complain about it. You can put yourself in a bad situation, work out of it, and never make those same mistakes again.
gotcha.
So there have been times where people have sponsored me financially and it has bitten me in the ass, right? Where they expected something like a sort of strategy from my career, which is not something that I'm willing to budge on. I'm not willing to sell my soul on a on certain things.
Mm,
So I've been like, okay, here's your money back. Cool. We'll go work with somebody else. Somebody else will dance naked for you, bro. Like figuratively speaking. They didn't actually ask me to dance naked, but yeah.
right.
But yeah.
Now,
So but also I'm very but before I say anything, I'm very fortunate that I've lived in a house where I don't have to think about where my next meal is going to come from. You know, it all depends on your circumstances. It all depends on whether you can call these shots or you can't. So you need to assess where you are. Let's say you're in a bad situation. You need to know that to be able to be successful, those sacrifices and selling yourself in a certain way, you are a commodity as an athlete in any aspect of sports. Virat Kohli, I bet he doesn't want to do those Puma commercials, but he fucking does it anyway, right? Does it anyway. He doesn't want to do a. He probably doesn't want to talk about what a water filter looks like, but he'll still do it anyway, right?
mm,
If it's the right amount of money. So you have to know what kind of position you're in. Like even at his level, he's doing it. So there's no shame for you to be doing those things. But again, like if it's going against your fundamentals, just be ready to deal with what comes after that.
got it. Now, Karan, in the beginning of the conversation, you said that you want to
Mhm.
fight for the UFC, and this is
Yeah.
quite an ambitious, that everyone would like to see. So, in case you participate in the UFC, will you become the first Indian to be participating, or is it Anshul Jubilee who is the first Indian who has done this?
No, so the first Indian that's participated in the UFC and has fought on a proper main card in the UFC has been Bharat Kandare. He's a man
Hmm.
from Maharashtra, Nasik, Maharashtra, that fought on in UFC China in 2017. He fought against Song Yadong,
Hmm.
who has now become one of the biggest prospects in the bantamweight division. He's a top 15 athlete, and like Bharat fought him at like when Song was only 19 years old and lost in the first round. Bharat given the fact that he was 32 years old in the twilight phase of his career and hadn't fought for almost 2 years prior to that, you know. So a lot of factors went into it, but I don't think Kandare was like, I'm not afraid to say this because chalo theek hai, I'm not shitting on him, but he was not in his prime and not ready for the UFC. You know,
Okay.
they sent him because he was India's most accomplished athlete at the time, because he had
Mm.
the most international fights as an Indian athlete. But that doesn't mean you're ready for the UFC. You know, Anshul, on the other hand, Anshul has had the right training. Anshul has had the right resources. Anshul has had the right contacts from day one, if you ask me, and his coach is Siddharth Singh, who happens to be the owner of Cross Train Delhi. Anshul made the right moves in terms of going for his training camp to Soma MMA when he got selected for the road to the UFC event. Uh, that razor close split decision that you see was, in my eyes, a hugely one-sided unanimous decision victory. You know, although Anshul couldn't put him away. Like, Koreans are tough, man. Like, I fought two Koreans and they are tough as hell. I beat both of them, but they are tough as shit. Like, there's just no getting through them. So the way
Mm.
Anshul picked them, like picked him apart, the way Anshul did what he had to do, like, I truly feel like he's going to be the first Indian UFC fighter that we can properly call a fighter. You know, who didn't
Okay.
just go in there and become a roll number. Like, I'm not saying Bharat was just a roll number. I'm just saying he was the first guy in there. But again, it didn't do a lot of good for the MMA athletes in India. 5 years later, 6 years later, we've gotten the next athlete. You know, and that's a very slow pace that we're working at. But Anshul has now kicked down the door for every subsequent professional fighter in this country at the highest level to be able to go to the road to the UFC events. And thankfully, that road to the UFC thing has come to Asia, where Indians can take part, where Indians are getting selected to go and fight under the big lights of the UFC. Although Pawan Man also fought on that same card with him, Pawan got knocked out in the third round. You know, so again, this was the Pawan past his prime. And I'll say that with full certainty because, you know, a lot of people that also do know him have told me the same things. I won't name names, but like,
Mm.
it is the way it is, man. Like, Anshul's the right age, he's the right size for his weight class, and he's got the right resources behind him. He's making the right business moves for MMA.
Sure.
So
Do you
he's
know
beaten
Anshul
big names.
personally,
Yeah.
or even as
Yes,
a
yes, I do.
professional?
Anshul and I are friends. Yeah. Anshul and I are
Acha.
friends. We never met, but I've picked his brain on a lot of things. He's picked my brain on a lot of things.
Mm.
And Instagram's a beautiful thing for that reason, you know, like, we respect each
That's
other's
how
work
we
a lot,
also
even though I'm a
connected.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, um, that's Anshul is one of those people that you can talk to anything about. He's a very approachable guy. He's a very nice guy. And this was right from the time when he fought at MFN 1 in 2017, but I contacted him for the first 2018 or 17. I'm not too clear, but I contacted him after that first win against Sanjeet Budwar, who is now the featherweight champion of MFN. You know, so he beat Sanjeet in his very first pro MMA fight. So you know that this guy was something from the first day that he fought, and he got the best fighter of the night award. So
Wow.
there's just no, yeah, again, like, you know that this guy was destined for greatness. I just didn't think that it was going to happen that soon, but, you know, fucking awesome for him that it has. And to see the kind of people that he's working with, I happened to run into his coach at the same event that I was fighting at. Anshul didn't fight at the same event, but one of his other fighters came to fight from Soma MMA, came to Manipur to fight on the same card that I was fighting. And I happened to have I exchanged words with Coach Mike from Soma MMA, and it was probably the best 5 minutes of my entire MMA career, because we were just discussing boxing fundamentals. And me being a former boxer, I love it when people work on simple shit in boxing in MMA, you know, and stuff that works. So he told
Mm.
me to come out and train with him. But again, like, I don't have the resources right now to go out and train with him. But hopefully, I'm looking to go out there later this year and train for my next training camp. But that's only going to happen when I have a fight coming up.
Right. And how do you intend to fulfill your dream of becoming the athlete at UFC? Like, do you have a plan ready, or in how many years can we expect to see you at the UFC?
So I have spoken to a bunch of people about my future moves in my career, and I'm not looking to put nazars or touch wood on my career, but by next year, I want to be able to have a good enough resume to apply for the road to the UFC event. Now, this is something that I'm saying very boldly out in front of the whole world to listen. I want to get it, between 5 to 7 fights within 2023 to be able to be eligible and get good enough fights. Like, I'm not somebody that's going to shy away from tough fights. Everybody that's
Mm.
agreeing to fight me even now is either 6-0, 7-0, and or 6-1, 8-2, people like that. Because people that have a closer record to me are not willing to accept fights. I don't know what it is about the Indian circuit, but a lot of people in my weight class at the level that I am at 1-0, don't want to fight. And my manager and I have been on this from day one, from March of last year when I decided to turn pro. Before my first pro fight, I had 12 fight cancellations. And after that, for my second fight, I've had about 4 so far.
So, do you have any reason, or have you had a chance to hear some gossip that why are these people canceling at the last moment?
So, what happens with a lot of fighters from time to time is a lot of guys don't want to take chances very early on in their pro careers. A lot of guys have accepted the fights, but for some reason, just the organization has not let it happen. The organizations that I've been speaking to, they've not let it happen. And I've been approaching MFN time and time again. But again, I think I need to be a little more credible before I fight in MFN, which I respect. So I'm looking to get at least 2 to 3 fights out of the way before June, before the next MFN event after MFN 11 now. Sorry, after MFN 12 that happens. By MFN 13, I think I should have 2 fights in, and I'll be calling out some guys from the bantamweight division that I want to call out even now. But again, like I don't think that they think that I am on that level just yet. And also, my win was one where it looks like it's a very Hail Mary kind of win, right? Like it looks like I just tried something and I won. Where in fact I was setting that up the entire fight, or setting something big up the entire fight. But again, like not everybody sees it like that. So with me right now, I'm going to take any chances that I get, anybody that is willing to sign that dotted line and fight with me. Because at this point, like I'm willing to fight for less money, I'm willing to fight for less fame. I'm looking to fight to be able to gain a lot of popularity is the wrong word, but just relevance in terms of me being me being active again. Because as an amateur, I was active. I was fighting almost every 4 months, right? So that was something that was keeping me in very good health, keeping me in the right headspace, and keeping me in the right place in life as well. Because when I'm focusing on a fight, I'm completely myself. For those couple of months, I'm completely myself, and I feel like a world beater. I feel like a world champion. So each training camp, I'm just chasing. I'm just chasing that. So as long as somebody's willing to sign that dotted line, there's no reason for them to there's no reason for me to not accept the fight. At this point, even if somebody gives me a fight in Bellator with somebody I know I'm going to lose to, I'm going to be like, fuck it, let's fight. I may pull something off. I'll try something wacky. I'll catch you with something.
Wow.
I may not
So,
win the fight, but I'll make sure you don't walk out of the. I'll make sure you don't walk out of the octagon unhurt. Like that's my entire approach in every fight. Like it's just maximum damage every time. Like I don't mean disrespect to my opponents when I do this. It's just the way I fight. I don't like to hurt people outside the cage, but I'm like kind of make up for it when I'm fighting in the cage, because
no,
that
but
just
that is
comes out.
confidence, right? That is the belief that you have for yourself that motivates you to be the kind of person you are in the ring.
Absolutely. It makes
So,
you it makes you humble because you have that side to yourself, and you're kind of I'm honestly a little scared of that side of myself, because whenever it's come out, if I'm arguing with somebody on the road or something, whenever that side of me has come out, like I've never hit somebody. I've been in precisely 2 street fights in my life, finished them, walked away, didn't want to start it. I hated it. I hated that I did what I did to those people. But again, like I've been somebody that's been beat up in person as well, right? Like when I was a kid, I know what it feels like to be like that. So I don't like doing that to people. I don't like to make somebody else feel small. Like unless somebody is with me and they are in danger, I won't do it. I won't lift my hands up first ever.
that's humble of you, man. Karan, I think we have had a great conversation,
Yeah.
and I wish you luck that we get to see you in the UFC by next year, and you execute your plan very well, so that we see
Inshallah.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank
And
you.
I think it will be great to have a conversation again after you have become participated in the UFC. Not only participated, that is very underplaying the success, but I hope you win as well.
Hearing these kinds of things from people like you, who are interviewing people every day, almost like every week, people that are doing great things with their lives, so you to be able to see that in me also, it means a lot. So it goes a long way when I hear these things from people, and I do my best to do these statements justice every day in training. Like every day that I'm working, every bit of success that anybody sees in any small form, and any bit of support that I get, it's always meant a lot for me. So I love doing these interviews. I love doing these podcasts. It's a great chance to get to know people, and it's a great chance to get to know people like you too, that like that like to pick people's brains. It's nice to be around that.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.